there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't.
You walk into this room at your own risk, because it leads to the future. Not a future that will be, but one that might be. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super-states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
Want to take a journey into the weird, the strange, and the unexplained? Then stick around. The adventure's about to begin. Welcome to In the Dark with David Kirk.
I'm David Kirk, and this is, in fact, In the Dark, Friday night. What an incredibly weird, it's so hard to even put words into this week. I'm almost at a loss for words. I think weird would definitely be a good word to describe this week's events. Also sad, incredibly strange. We are at a event here that quite possibly could change the whole way we see things and the whole way we act as Americans. And the events of this week, and I'm specifically talking about the bombings in Boston, but there's been so many other things that have happened this week. But the bombings at Boston and the two people that were responsible for that are going to forever change the way we see things and the way we act. Is that going to be for the better? Is that going to be for the worse? That's the real question. And let me just first, before I even go any further, say that my deepest condolences go out to the families of those victims. I can't even imagine what they're going through. It looks like 4 people, as of now, were killed. 3 at the marathon and 1 police officer from MIT. And there's over 30 people, I think, that will never walk again, at least without the assistance of prosthetics or other aids like that. But I can't even imagine what they're going through. But that was not the only thing that happened this week. There was a very strange man that mailed Ricin to Obama, a senator, and a judge. And also that explosion at a fertilizer factory in West Texas. Not to mention a lot of other very strange things that happened this week. They were kind of brushed under the rug because of this bombing. One that really a lot of people didn't even know happened was the passing of a new internet security bill that was passed on the same day that the gun legislation was shot down in the Senate. A lot of people don't know that happened. But in fact, we have now lost a lot of our freedom on the internet. And it's kind of strange because there was such a backlash for the bill that was trying to be passed last year. The name escapes me. SOPA, I think it was. There was such a backlash from internet companies that it never passed. But it seems there was almost no talk about this one at all, and that I found a little disturbing. So what we're going to do tonight is have a discussion with Mark Howitt, who is no stranger to this show. He's been on our show before, and we're going to talk to him about this very strange week, specifically the events in Boston. And I'm going to actually not waste any time here, and we're going to get him on the show right now to get this underway. He is again the founder of a activist group, World Public Union. Here he is right now. Mark, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me on again.
You know, what a weird week, to say the least. Let me say before we go any further, what was your initial reaction? Let me say that when I first heard about these bombings in Boston, I kind of had the same feeling that I did when I heard about Sandy Hook. Just an uneasy feeling that something wasn't right. Did you have that? I don't want to say that I have any, like I'm a psychic or anything. I think it was just, natural human intuition that there was something weird about this. Did you have that same feeling just before you even heard anything? You just heard there was a bombing in Boston?
Yeah, for sure. Like when I hear of events like this, I usually tend to try to investigate it myself and get as much information as I can and keep up to date with current events and breakthroughs. So this was definitely one of those acts of terrorism, I guess you could call, that usually tend to draw people to watch the media.
Let's try to break this down. I'm trying to keep up to date on what's just happened in the past hour.
Yeah, it was a busy day for sure. There's lots of events unfolding and still lots of questions that people have.
Oh no, definitely. But let's break it down and go back to Monday when this first happened at the Boston Marathon. Was there anything initially that struck you as odd when you first heard about this?
Well, what struck me as odd was that there was multiple bombs, and then there was the report of the JFK library that was on fire, and then the media, I think it was the next day, said that the fire at the JFK library was not related. They didn't believe it was related. They used a loose term. I believe it was likely or quite possibly not related. So they weren't really specific, which is usually another indication too that kind of got my curiosity is when you hear the media reporting and they don't use names. They say this person wishes to remain unidentified, but he works for the FBI, or you hear them say our officials or authorities tell us that this and that, and they go on to explain their story, but they never identify names or specific sources. So it's kind of strange how they could have essentially nobody, a no-name, a faceless person, giving them what we're told is credible information,
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you that there's something going on there where they're trying to hide their identities on where the information's coming from and stuff like that. So
Well, it seemed very reminiscent of Sandy Hook, where there was
yeah.
stories that changed, back and forth.
9/11, James Holmes,
Yeah.
the Aurora shooting, even the explosion in West Texas. Also, that's pretty suspicious in my opinion, because they really don't have any solid, credible information on that from what I've investigated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On the cause of it, anyways. They say that they're not sure if it was arson, like intentionally ignited, but fertilizer is a known explosive. It was used in several bombings in the past. And what's also curious is the company had a lawsuit with Monsanto in 2007. So that's kind of curious.
Do you know how many people were killed by that explosion? I'm not sure of the numbers. I know it was around 12 or something like that. Yeah,
I think the last I saw was 13. What really struck me odd in the Boston bombing, actually, and really got me looking into it really deep, was that only 3 casualties came out of the whole thing, and that's pretty odd for such a packed event with lots of people. And there's 2 explosions, so there's multiple blast areas, and there's only 3 casualties. There was a lot of injuries, mind you, but the damage was essentially pretty minimal to the buildings and to the people that were around it for these bombs. So, and they're also packed with shrapnel, which means that it wasn't really intended to have a significant blast area. And if you look at the video, the bombs actually explode upwards. They don't spread out. They kind of shoot upwards in a plume of smoke, which kind of indicates that it was meant to have less impact, almost like it was more of a message or something, in my opinion.
Yeah. With the West Texas, I don't know, but I think I heard somewhere that the bombs used in Boston had fertilizer in that. Do you know if that's true or not?
I'm not sure, actually. I didn't find any information about that. I know there are pressure cooker bombs with shrapnel inside, and they're trying to identify where they came from, the place of origin and stuff like that. But the suspects that have been apprehended and that the public have been told are these suspects, there's a lot of questions there. The family is claiming that they were set up by the Secret Service or agents of the government, and there's a lot of concern over this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that the father, who's still in Russia, was very adamant, saying that if they killed his son, that all hell would break loose, and that it would be a government cover-up that did this. And then his aunt, who is, I think, from Toronto, she was saying that it was some sort of conspiracy.
Yeah, she's actually said that, and this is very strange that the first brother, the older brother, is dead, and the second is injured. He's been detained in the last couple of hours, but he was injured, and they claim that he might have crawled into the boat injured from the previous night, the shootout when his brother was killed. But there's videos, I saw the video, where you can clearly hear a massive amount of gunfire, and that's when they had him in the boat. So they were firing on the boat, and there's also reports that there's bullet holes all in the boat. The owner was afraid to go in there and check it out, so they fired at him. Apparently he fired back at the police too. There was a gunfight. So I don't know if the younger brother is actually going to live. You know what I mean? Dzhokhar, I think is his name.
Yeah,
Dzhokhar. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to live to be able to tell people, to give them more information on why they would have done this. And with the parents saying that it's some sort of conspiracy and they were set up, that they could never have done this, and their friends as well saying that. There's going to be a lot of questions unfolding from the general public in regards to this. and which is good, because then they might look back at the Sandy Hook incident and the James Holmes and 9/11 and find the answers that we have in regards to those instances.
Well, I'm looking at Drudge Report right now, and the up-to-date is that he's critical but in stable condition. But I'm going to tell you right now that I would not be surprised if, it comes out tomorrow that he died mysteriously in his sleep, or died, somehow in the middle of the night under strange conditions.
Another Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah. And
Patsy put in place, killed so we can't talk, and then everyone just goes on their lives believing that these were the suspects and these were the people guilty of it. And if I'm sure you've also noticed that there is craft members all around. I know you sent me an article earlier about that. There is craft intelligence members. They're a military contract agency. There was lots of members around the scene before the blast and after. And there's also lots of pictures taken from local businesses and cell phones and such, showing other people that of interest that look very suspicious. And there's a picture floating around too of somebody bending over, fiddling with their backpack right near the blast area.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, so that needs to be looked into a bit further, I think.
Yeah, well, let me just bring up right now that on my website, inthedarkfridaynight.com, I have those pictures actually up of these undercover, I don't know what they are, either they're Navy SEALs or Blackwater, some type of security force, like you said.
Yeah. Advertised military.
It's really, really weird. If you look at, there's no doubt that there's some sort of paramilitary group. It's just, who are they? They have... one of the guys is wearing a Punisher logo, which is a known logo of Navy SEALs. Chris Kyle wore that hat many times, and
his death was pretty mysterious as well.
Yeah, I think they shut him up. He definitely knew something that they didn't want let out. Mm-hmm. But anyway, what were these paramilitary people doing there? One of them on the website, you can go take a look at that, whoever's listening. This one of them is holding this radiation detector, and he's right next to the finish line, and it was just really weird. And then there's another picture of the same guy and another guy talking into earpieces seconds before the bombs went off, and it just really begs the question, what really happened there? I'm starting to think false flag. It's just so weird the way the media has been playing it. After it happened, they started hyping that it could be a right-wing extremist. They really wanted that to happen.
Yeah. They were trying to blame it on the truthers and the activists, for sure.
And I was really scared that if it turned out that it was a right-wing extremist, that it was pretty much over for America as we know it. I had a feeling that if that was going to happen, we were screwed because it would just...
regardless... I live in Canada and you're from America, so I just noticed on the news today about Canada that they're going to be upping the ante in regards to terrorism in Canada. So I'm going to be feeling the heat that you guys have been for quite some time now, and I believe that the security in America is going to be ridiculous coming soon. Everywhere there's going to be cameras implemented on every street corner in America. There's going to be video cameras in buildings. They're going to be able to monitor audio conversations through your cell phone, through wiretaps that are they don't even need a warrant for. It's all coming really soon, and it's already kind of slipping its way in. If you've been following the FBI, how they've been trying to get more leeway in regards to websites and be able to access information, conversations, pictures, videos, stuff like that. So it's coming really soon,
Yeah.
The Orwellian world.
I don't know if you've seen the pictures that have been coming out of this town in Massachusetts where this Dzhokhar was hiding out, but it looked like a war zone. They had tanks there. They had, SWAT teams, FBI. I think that is a little bit of what we're going to see in the future. That is what a martial law is going to look like. If you wonder what martial law is going to look like, what happened today in that Watertown, Massachusetts, is what is probably going to happen across America coming very soon.
Yeah, just so that anywhere that anything could happen, they're going to be there full force in every city.
And what do you think? Do you think that the government's going to manipulate this story? I don't think there's a question that they're going to manipulate this story to their advantage.
I think they already have in a lot of ways.
What do you think they're going to? What do you think they're going to implement though? What do you see coming soon? Just like how Obama tried to use Sandy Hook for the guns, obviously. Is there something that you see right now that they're going to try to get from this bombing?
Well, there's a lot of things that you need to take a look at in regards to this, and that's the bigger picture. And who's gaining from this? Pro bono, I've been trying to figure that out, and I'm sure everybody has. But there's no doubt that there's foul play here, and that there was a suspect that was detained and arrested earlier before the original suspects were announced by the public, or by the media. There's so many things that don't make sense in regards to this.
Yeah,
especially that they're things that they're not reporting on. Like, I've been keeping up to date with the InfoWars sites. They seem to have a lot of good, solid information in regards to the Boston bombing, for sure. That's what I've noticed. And there's a few other sites, too, that are keeping up to date with everything, which is really good, that people are remaining vigilant on the other side of the media. So it's good that people, even like just random people, just regular people that are starting to wake up to this stuff, are actually, now that there's, like, Sandy Hook might have given them a little bit of a reason to actually question the government, and now they're looking into this a little bit more, you know what I mean? So
yeah, what really was weird back on Wednesday, you mentioned this, they said that there was all the news all over the place that they had the guy in custody and they were sending him to the courthouse, and then out of the blue there was a bomb threat at this courthouse and everybody had to be evacuated, and it just seemed too convenient, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that guy that they had originally was probably going to be a right wing extremist that they were going to pin it on, and then when it was found out that, like, sites like InfoWars found out that what they were doing, they had to go to Plan B, and the Plan B was these two guys.
Yeah, I watched a video by a Lieutenant Colonel Potter. He was actually discussing that exact thing, and it makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? That's what they would have done in that case. That they had their guy, that they had their fall guy, and then all of a sudden, the alternative media and just public investigators were just looking into this so much that they kind of got busted in their tracks, so they had to come up with another plan. One thing that's just ridiculous is the fact that if you look at the videos that the media released of the suspects, the two brothers, I have not seen a shred of evidence showing them placing backpacks anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the video of that?
No, I haven't seen the video of that, but what I have seen are pictures of other people, like those paramilitary, that have the same backpacks that was in the explosion, but I didn't see these two guys with those backpacks.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something that's just not making sense to me, and that's what the family's saying too, is that there's no evidence linking them to the crime, really. And will we ever see the bodies or pictures? Like, I've seen a picture of the younger brother who got detained at the boat. I seen a picture of him being detained, but I didn't get a good facial shot, so I couldn't tell if it was him or not. So that's one thing that I'm going to keep looking for is evidence to link them to the crime, direct evidence. Apparently, they have a video. That's what they said in their reports, the FBI, that they have a video showing them dropping their backpacks, and then another video later on where they don't have a backpack. But the pictures I seen later on, you can't tell if they have a backpack on because there's people in front of them blocking the view. If they did have a backpack, maybe I haven't seen all the photos, but the ones I have seen, there's no direct link of visual evidence connecting them to the crime.
Yeah, maybe that'll come out sooner, but from what I've seen so far, I can't really say that these guys did it. To tell you here on Drudge Report, third link down, there's actually a picture of the older brother. It's pretty graphic, but it's a picture of his corpse, and it's all bloody and everything. But they did actually release a picture of him. But I'm sure you heard about that. I think I emailed you about that, about the Saudi who they originally detained, and then was
Sunil.
Yeah, I wasn't sure of his name, but I know that he was originally a person of interest, and then all of a sudden they're saying, oh no, he didn't do anything, he's not a person of interest, forget about him. And then the government apologized to him, offered to pay for his health care, and then what was really weird is Obama had an impromptu conversation with a high-ranking Saudi, and now this guy's going to be deported back to Saudi Arabia. So we can't leave out what this guy did. I mean, who knows what his involvement what was in this whole thing.
Exactly. And there's another thing that we need to look at, and that is the fact that early reports were stating that there was other bombs that were undetonated that were found.
Yeah.
I heard that. So that means that these two brothers only being seen with one backpack each on the videos that we were shown, and not having a direct visual link showing them dropping the backpacks and leaving the scene. So the fact that there's multiple bags, multiple explosions, a fire at the JFK library, which, by the way, I was told contains the sealed JFK documents, which are crucial in the case. So there's all this happening and indicating that there was a team, that there was more than just these two brothers involved. And if the two brothers were involved at all, then they were just patsies, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, in that Boston, the JFK library, they originally said that there was a bomb there, and then they said, oh, it was a controlled explosion, and then they said it was an electrical fire. So they couldn't even get their stories right. There was like 3 different stories, and then they were just like, oh, forget about it. Nothing happened at the JFK library. And something happened there, and I think, like you said, that maybe they used this bombing as an excuse to get rid of some evidence in the Kennedy case. But did you?
Yeah, I'd like to know if there was any damages to any of the documents in there.
Did you hear about this other controlled explosion that happened today? It was like kind of quietly announced at one of the press conferences, and it was one time. It was mentioned like once, and then there was nothing else about it. And they said we're going to have a controlled explosion somewhere in Watertown. And
a drill.
Yeah, and it was never mentioned
one of the houses.
Yeah. So who knows what that was all about. Let me.
That's crazy though that they had that one of the runners said that there was a bomb drill going on too. That he was told that there was a bomb drill, and that's why there was bomb sniffing dogs there before the race started, and there was spotters on rooftops. And I think the people on the rooftop actually kind of look like those craft employees.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask you about that, and then also a lot of people were reporting that right after the explosion on the loudspeakers that they were saying, oh, this is just a drill, don't worry about it.
Yeah, just like Sandy Hook, there was a drill preparing for child and emergency situations going on by FEMA, just like Aurora.
Yeah.
There was a similar drill going on, just like the London bombings. There was a drill going on for that. 9/11, same thing. There was a drill going on with planes. This is just got to stop.
Yeah, it just seems like that drill is like a staple in whoever plans this. That's like their calling card. If there's a drill happening, then you know that something big's coming.
Yeah,
but
it's crazy. And I mean, I know it's not because we're all drinking fluoride and stuff, because I know a lot of people are awake. It's just people feel powerless. People feel that they can't really speak out about this stuff because when we do, we're called conspiracy nuts and freaks, and a lot of people are attacked in the media. Like Alex Jones was recently attacked for his questioning the Boston bombing. They just attack us and try to make us look like clowns, when really a lot of the information that even mainstream media gets are from people like us, independent investigators and people that are questioning things. It's just they choose what to put out. And they filter it out so badly, it's like smoking a cigarette. It's got such a huge filter in it. You're not getting anything real, you know what I mean? You're just getting all what they want you to get.
That's why you got to go to like the internet and alternative media now. I mean, don't even bother with television networks and their likes, because you're not going to get anything but propaganda from them. If you want to get the real news, I mean, go to Drudge Report, go to your site, of course, worldpublicunion.org, or go to InfoWars, because you can't get anything but lies from Fox News, MSNBC. It's just all propaganda. Well, let me ask you about a couple other things that happened this week. I mean, what a weird week.
Yeah, what a phenomenal week in the history of mankind.
Yeah, I mean, and not even just this year. I want to talk to you later about what else happened this week in past years. But let me ask you about a story that was mentioned for a couple days, then forgotten about because of this Boston bombing. What happened? What do you know about this guy who sent Ricin laced letters to Obama, a senator, and this judge? What this guy was like a Elvis impersonator or something? What do you know about that?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting story as well. He sent it to two senators and apparently to the White House, letters laced with ricin to poison. It's a poisonous substance that has no antidote. There's no way to cure yourself if you intake it. You can take it by inhaling, I guess, or absorbing it, or ingesting it. But that's, we're starting to see more and more people defiant against the government, because people are just, excuse my language, people are just tired of getting screwed.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that was. I think he was just tired of getting pummeled and seeing what he's been seeing in the news. Like, he just got sick of it, and he just decided to do something stupid about it.
Yeah. Well,
he decided to take the non-political way to address his problems. So.
Well, did you hear about what he supposedly uncovered? He was an Elvis impersonator, and he had one of his shows at like this nursing home, and he said that it was some like sort of organ farm, and they were just stealing these old people's organs and stuff, and he was trying to uncover it, and he said that the government was out to get him, and he was trying to call his senators, and they just told him to shut up and stop talking about it. And I think that's what really set him off, is because he thinks he found out about this like illegal organ farming. I don't know if there's any truth to that.
I never heard that, actually. That's news to me. I guess that kind of supports what I just said, though. Yeah. I guess he was fed up with his government and he wanted to do that. But that's definitely crazy, because I was just reading actually on how they're doing GM organs and stuff. So that's I'm gonna have to look into that a bit. That's pretty interesting for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about what happened in West Texas. There was a fertilizer plant that exploded. We talked a little about that before, but do you know if there was anything
right near Waco, Texas? Yeah, too.
Yeah, but do you know if there was anything around there that could have conveniently been destroyed, or do you know if anything unusual happened there, or is just like a fluke?
Well, it was a massive explosion. It destroyed a school, and apparently a whole street is gone. That's what one neighbor, or one person who lives in the area, was reported to saying, that one of the streets nearby was completely eradicated from the explosion. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen the video online of the actual explosion. That was no small-scale bomb.
Yeah, it looked like a nuclear explosion or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely a massive explosion. And because it was at a fertilizer plant, I still haven't actually looked into the reasons that we've been given why it was started, but I did hear, I heard an early report, that's when I first heard about it and looked into it, that they thought it might have been arson, that they were looking into it. So that would make sense, like somebody lighting a fire at a fertilizer plant to explode the fertilizer. It makes sense to, if you wanted to make a massive explosion, to do that. So that right there seems like it needs to be looked at as a possible act of terrorism, essentially sending a message and killing people, so.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised to find out if
somebody would have to know that fertilizer reacts like that, so.
Yeah, well, I heard that place wasn't even inspected since 1985, so it just goes to show, like, the backwards nature of our government. They don't, inspect a fertilizer plant that is pretty much a bomb plant. I mean, and then, they're bothering us about our health care and, our other rights when they're not checking a freaking bomb plant. I mean,
yeah,
it just goes to show. But
it's backwards,
Yeah, but let me just say that I wouldn't be surprised if we learn later that there was something around that fertilizer plant that that was conveniently destroyed, like maybe some.
Well, there was that Monsanto case, maybe they were threatening to bring it back or something. I heard it didn't go through, but it was filed in 2007, and Monsanto, I'm sure you know of them. I'm sure people that are listening know who they are. They're definitely tyrants, and I could see them doing something like this if they're wanting to get rid of a company that threatens them.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I would, yeah, like if Monsanto was threatened, they would do something like that.
Let's go back in time, actually, and this isn't just a strange week this year. Past years, there was Columbine, I think, Waco, Oklahoma City. I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting right now, but those are the big three that I'm thinking of right now. There's definitely something weird about this week that the powers that be plan all their big events during this week in the year. Do you know why they do that? Is there something special about this week?
Yeah, it has to do something with Baal, the god Baal, essentially child sacrifice or human sacrifice in actuality, any human. I believe it's a Canaanite ritual where they would sacrifice humans near this time of the year, mid to late April. That's what I've looked into anyways, and it's been recurring for a long time. It's just been known that this is a darker time. It's change, essentially. It's like the changing of seasons as well. I think that the occultists have an interest in that because nature is powerful, you know what I mean? The changing of the seasons, it gives us life, so they tend to manipulate and understand these energies and stuff like that. So I believe that the occultists are definitely provoke this type of energy during this time of year, as we can see of all these events happening around the same time of year. So
yeah, I mean, there's something about this week. It's just weird. But what do you know about the new SOPA law? It's not SOPA, but it's the new version that was passed like under the rug. Nobody really heard about it. It was kind of quietly mentioned on a couple news reports. But supposedly, the day that gun legislation didn't pass in the Senate, a new type version of SOPA did pass, and now,
is that like internet?
Yeah.
Is that in relation to the internet?
Yeah, supposedly.
Privacy?
Yeah, remember last year when that was SOPA? I think it was called SOPA. That all the like Google and Amazon and everybody were saying don't support it, and it was going to infringe on our rights in the internet. Well, supposedly a new.
Actually, I wasn't really on the internet like last year, but I have been receiving emails from people in regards to that, and Aaron Swartz and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, supposedly it passed, a new version passed this week, like on Monday, and it wouldn't surprise me if this Boston bombing was kind of like a diversion to this new SOPA bill, because Obama did say that he wasn't going to pass it, but he said he wasn't going to, sign other laws like, I can't think offhand, but I mean, he's a known liar, so I'm sure that if it reaches his desk, it has to pass the House. It passed the Senate, now it has to pass the House. And if it passes the House, and I'm sure he's going to sign it because he loves taking our rights away.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He just cares about the future of profits and stability of government for future generations of Americans. And that's what any government cares about. Once you have a government in place in a country where the people are no longer free human beings, the government's put in place, you're now under control, and you have to abide by the law. You're assigned a number, aka birth certificate, and you have to follow their rules. And unfortunately, people like Barack Obama, Barry Soetoro, people like that they essentially don't care about who they're ruling over. They have no empathy, so they sign bills like the Monsanto Act, where it ensures that future generations of Americans, and essentially anybody they export GMO foods to, which includes me up in Canada, we have to consume all that, and we're going to get sick from it if we do. So it's brutal. It's a human experiment that's been going on for quite some time.
Yeah.
They want to test the long-term effects of these new inventions and creations like GMOs and the chemicals that they put in food, preservatives and such. They want to test it on the public for prolonged periods of time to see the long-term results and effects on the human body. And they don't have that with new technologies. New technologies cannot stand the test of time. So essentially they're just forced on the public, and we're eating it and we're consuming it, and that's why there's such a high cancer epidemic rate and new diseases sparking up all the time. So
yeah, that's why, potato chips are cheap, but if you want to get something healthy to eat, it's super expensive, because they know that it's the poor people that are going to buy that. It's the same thing with cigarettes and all the other stuff. I was going to talk about Korea. I know you wrote an article on your website about that, and it's been brushed aside because of what happened in Boston, but I don't think we've heard the last of Potbelly guy over there, Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
What do you what's your take on that whole situation that happened there?
Well, I see it as essentially the starting of something big, mainly because North Korea wants to prove themselves as a nuclear state. Other countries have that ability to do so, such as United States, Israel, Russia. So you have countries that have are a nuclear state, and they have these programs in place. And North Korea wants the same level of respect in that aspect. However, he is threatening to use nuclear weapons on America and turn Washington to flames, and he is using a lot of rhetoric, as they call it. But in my opinion, what he's doing is he's trying to essentially get himself on the world stage, get North Korea unified with South Korea. That's why he's always calling them traitors, because he finds that they've separated from the North and taken sides with the United States. So essentially he just wants to that's what the declaration stated in the declaration, which mainstream media refuses to report on. They refuse to report on the fact that North Korea just wants to be a nuclear state. They want to have nuclear capabilities, and they want to protect Asia along with China, because they're allied with China. So they want to be the nuclear or the military enforcement for that region of the world. And they're scared that America essentially and its allies are going to work their way in there, and they already have. That's why they're in Seoul, and that's why there's all these military bases in Japan. That's why America has actually deployed military bases in a majority of the world, so that they can have some sort of military power in that area. So North Korea just wants to essentially clear that up and remain a power. That's why they don't want to enter talks unless they'll be allowed to use nuclear technology. So, and really, if they're responsible about it, if he wasn't threatening to use them, then really, and if he wasn't, if he didn't have violent intentions, then really I find there's nothing wrong with that, because there's so many other countries that have that technology and capability. But really the bigger question is, should nukes even be allowed? Should nuclear technology even be permitted to be used by any country?
Yeah.
And that's what North Korea is saying. North Korea is saying, we're going to have nuclear technology, and the only other option is everybody total global nuclear disarmament. So,
well, that's never going to happen. I mean, it would never happen.
So that's why I find this situation's kind of, it could evolve into something pretty big.
Well, my take on the situation is that China who really pulls the strings in North Korea.
Yeah.
They were kind of using North Korea to test, just to see how much America would put up with, and to really point out to the rest of the world what a paper tiger America has become. Because
if that were to occur, I believe that Russia would actually merge with China, because Russia and U.S., they have decent relations, but if you've seen in the news lately, China and Russia are developing stronger relationships in all matters of that word. So that's going on. Plus, you have all the uprisings in the Middle East. So who's to say that China, North Korea, Russia wouldn't ally with the Middle East? I mean, Russia has had ties with Afghanistan in the past,
and Iran.
So you have all these connections there. So if things were to escalate, and where something were to happen, I think it would be divided in that way anyways.
Yeah, well, that was a huge concern back, during the Cold War, that China and Russia would merge, but there was always disagreements and stuff between communist China and Soviet Russia. But now, I'm sure you heard that the first place that the new premier of China went to was Russia, and that was like a big sign saying, screw you, America, we're going to work with Russia.
Oil can only be traded with American dollars, and Russia and China right now are working very vigilantly to be able to have their own oil supply without using American dollars to trade for that.
Well, I'm glad you just brought that up. I was going to say what the real ticking time bomb here is the dollar. I mean, when is it going to collapse? It could collapse tomorrow. I mean, who knows? How long can we prop it up with nothing?
Yeah, it's the same puppets who are orchestrating these chaotic terrorist events that are actually manipulating the financial markets. They're they can do anything they want, really. It's all just numbers to them. They just sit in a room and it's all predetermined, in my opinion, for the economy and what things are worth. There's a roundtable group, I'm sure, that make those decisions.
Bilderberger, which is going to be in London, I think, this year. People like them.
Yeah, exactly. There's that's what's going on in the world, though. Like I think we discussed this last time on your show, that people are just waking up to this all over the world, and there's massive civil unrest going on where people are protesting against their governments in all corners of the earth. And people are waking up to this stuff, and that's why I started the World Public Union, is to try to start groups in different places where they are aware of corruption in government, and they want to have a bigger voice from the public. They want their voice to be heard. So it's a way for people to get involved in their local community, get together with other activists and have meetings and discuss stuff, and essentially be prepared for protests and exchange information, keep up to date on the news, all sorts of things, So that's why I started that group, actually, is because I feel that everybody in the world needs to address the government problem, because it's not just an American problem, it's a global problem.
Definitely. Let me ask you, do you think that the events in Boston and the other events this week, do you think that accelerated what's coming, which is going to be a global economic collapse? Do you think that's coming sooner than we kind of suspect it is? Is something?
Yeah, well, the gold rate dropped pretty low.
Yeah,
that day, really low, actually, like in a record low, and I think that was done purposely, obviously, to give people a scare, because a lot of people aren't trusting banks anymore, and they've been investing in metals like gold and silver. Even people were starting to invest in Bitcoin a bit. So there's all these alternatives as opposed to money, which people are actually starting to get more and more involved with. But the price of gold kept increasing for quite some time, and that was well in advance of any of this. The globalists knew that this was going to happen, so that's why they were buying up all the gold and stuff like that. So, but really, like they control the market, so they can do whatever they want, really. If they want to crash the economy, they're going to do that, and they will. They have done it before. So I don't know if you looked into Cyprus there, but the president, as well as tons of other companies, there's documents released showing that they all cleared their bank accounts before the banks collapsed. So that's proof right there that the governments know when this is about to happen. The banks know, like the heavy bankers, the chairmans and stuff, and all the major companies and industry that need to keep the resources of the economy flowing for the country. Essentially, they all pulled money from their bank accounts before the crash happened. Yeah. And then the public had to pay. They were cut from their funds, their savings, and that right there can happen anywhere in the world. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper just signed a bill into place that will protect major banks, but nowhere in that document does it say that he's going to protect the public from this sort of thing. It just says that this bail-in, it's called a bail-in, was there to protect major banks from collapsing, like in Cyprus. So they're planning on this even in Canada. So it's coming, I think. So
yeah, well, in Cyprus, a lot of people here were asking, could that happen in America? And the media said, that would never happen. It's impossible. But almost, I think it was a day after that was first announced, Bank of America had a weird issue where all of their accounts mysteriously went to zero across all of their accounts in the United States. And Alex Jones mentioned this, and he knows somebody who knows the inner workings of banking, and he said that would be impossible to happen. If somebody hacked into Bank of America, all of the accounts couldn't be shut off because they're split into different servers, so nothing like that could ever happen. If one server went down, it wouldn't affect the other servers. And he said that they're testing their system to whenever an economic collapse happens, that they can take all the money out.
Yeah, they do it too.
Yeah,
it's happened. It happened in Cyprus. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen in America, I think, very soon.
Money is really just a piece of paper. It's printed out in giant sheets in a printing factory, just like our books are printed and our posters and business cards. It's printed in the same, not the same kind of factory, but essentially on the same machines. And it's just giant sheets of paper that are printed out with pictures on it and numbers, and people have made that their lives. And really, I've tried to transition away from the urgency to need money or to be involved with that rat race. You know what I mean? I've tried to sever my ties to the government and any corporations or banks as much as I can possibly. So I've tried to do that, and it's hard not to, because the entire system is a giant web that from the time you're born, you get a birth certificate, your parents sign you over to the government, and you're a baby, so you don't have any say over this. You're just forcefully signed over to the government by your parents, who are also unwitting most of the time, unless they read the fine print on the documents and ask questions to the doctors and their government before having a baby. But essentially, you're born into the system to become a worker and a slave for the government, and if you don't, then you don't have access to the services that are available by the government, which include banks, supermarkets, just anything that's built off the economy. And they don't want people growing their own food, which is why they've been raiding gardens and tightening up on that. They don't want people going onto crown land and building homes for themselves or becoming free men on the land. They don't want that kind of thing happening. So they're trying to tighten up on that, because they know that people are starting to see the world for what it is, and they want to escape that web, that matrix that the government has created, or the global elite, the globalists, I guess you could call them.
When this economic collapse happens, the wealthy person is not going to be the person with all the paper. It's going to be the person with all the food. And I think that it's very important, even if you're on a shoestring budget and you can't afford, you can only afford to pay your bills. Find a way to get storable food. I mean, I have a little bit myself. I think it's extremely important that you have at least just a week's supply of food, just in case anything happens.
And buy lots of seeds.
Exactly.
Have a stockpile of seeds so that you can grow your own food. That's where it's at, is growing your own food, becoming sustainable and taking care of yourself. That's what we need to learn to do as human beings, is take care of ourselves. Nobody does that anymore, and I'm even guilty of that, because I have children that are, they go to school and I'm married and stuff, so I'm involved with this system somehow, some way. They've tried to snare me in however they can, but I've tried to try to get the claws out of my back, so to speak, and try to get away from it, but it's really hard, You essentially just have to become, just like, give it all up and just go in the bush and just hike out and just see how long you can make it before they find your habitat and take you down for it. But we just really got to take care of ourselves, grow our own food, and just try to not depend on this stuff so much. And then when these people do manipulate it and it does have an effect on us, then we won't be harmed so much. We'll know how to take care of ourselves, and that's the most important thing, is knowing how to take care of yourself. So
we need to go back to what we originally meant to do, was take care of ourselves, take care of our families, and not have the government, decide and take care of us as if we're all little children. I mean, it can't last like this forever. But
like look at Ruby Ridge,
Yeah.
They tried to do that. They tried to can't remember his first name, Randy Weaver.
Yeah.
And he brought his family up into the woods there and built a home, and they grew their own food, and they lived without the need of the government, and they eventually got killed for it, most of the family anyways, and that's a pretty sad event, and we can learn from that, really, but most people are scared. Waco, I think, is another example of that happening, where David Koresh took a group of people to live outside of the society and try to maintain a community without the need of the government, and they were also burned alive and killed children, innocent children. So the government is capable of doing this sort of thing, and they have for a long time. So
yeah, well, today is the anniversary of Waco, just to mention that. Well, you brought up, this is kind of an interesting story, that, did you hear about that guy who was living by himself in the Maine wilderness for like 27 years?
No.
Yeah, it was this hobo or whatever, and he was living out in the middle of nowhere in Maine, and nobody knew about him for like 27 years, and then they found him stealing like food from a campsite, and he got arrested for it. But I mean, 27 years is a pretty long time to be out by yourself.
Yeah, that reminds me of that movie, The Road.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've seen that. It's a great
good
movie.
It is, yeah. I'm into that kind of apocalypse stuff. But let me ask you, have you heard about Common Core? Do you know anything about that?
That's Common Core is like mining, isn't it?
No. It's I'm not too familiar with it, but I listen to a lot of talk radio, and Glenn Beck has really been talking about this. It's a new centralized version of education in the United States. It's kind of like a super version of No Child Left Behind, but it's going to like centralize everything, and every student is going to have all of their information recorded on like a federal database, and they're all going to have to take these standardized tests that are pretty much going to be like in China, where they decide what job you're going to do, and pretty much plan your whole future. It's a really shocking thing. I can't believe you haven't heard of it yet. I suggest look up Common Core. It's really cool.
I'm going to check that out.
In fact, during the Masters, the golf tournament, ExxonMobil was having all these ads saying that they support Common Core. So there's a red flag right there. Whatever ExxonMobil is supporting, it's bad.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that they're essentially going to indoctrinate our children to all think the same and be nice programmed cyborgs that work for the government.
Even more than it already is. I mean, if you just... I think it was you that I said this before, but if you want to look at one perfect way to indoctrinate a generation, it's the American school system, because you're pretty much giving your child away to the government for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's the perfect way to indoctrinate somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I explained that in one of my documentaries, Eye of the Illuminati, actually. I I discussed how the school system just trains children, and even daycare. They're brought when the parents are going to work and assuming their responsibilities. The children are brought to daycare so that when they're like the most important time in a child's life is from when they're born until they're about 7 or 8 years old, and that's when they learn the most material. They learn from the world that they live in, and they learn from the people that they meet and the people they talk to and the things that they do. So when they're being brought to a daycare at a very young age, usually at like 2 years old, sometimes 3 years old, that's when they're developing their brain and they're learning that they're away from their parents, 8 in the morning, and then they go to daycare all day, and then they see their mom at 4 or 5 again, or their dad, and then school, same thing. They have to wake up in the morning, so it's just all a cycle that's meant to get them trained to adapt to the world that they've created for us. And work too is the same thing. You wake up in the morning, you got to go to work. It's the death cycle, I guess you could say.
Well, did you hear Obama wants to now make it law that you're going to have your 4 and 5 year olds go to public school? It's in America, it's standard that a kid begins their education in public school at 6. That's like when kindergarten starts. But Obama wants it to be like 4 years old. I mean, it's still a baby then. I mean,
yeah.
And 6 years old is too old. They want to indoctrinate them as soon as they can, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a 4-year-old and he goes to school. It's called JK. It's junior kindergarten, and then after that it's senior kindergarten, and then it's grade 1. So it's like they've created these mini grades, I guess you could say.
Is that mandatory in Canada?
I mean, if I pulled my kids out of school and I homeschooled them, I don't think that the government would be knocking at my door saying you can't do that. I think like the only downfall to essentially taking care of yourself in this situation is you wouldn't be able to go to university or college because you need prerequisites to be accepted to those establishments. So that's the one downfall about being homeschooled, is if you homeschool your kids, you don't have access to this, and essentially you don't have access to better paying jobs because you don't have the piece of paper that hangs on the wall.
Yeah.
And you won't have the pieces of paper in your wallet afterwards. So
yeah, well, did you hear that also Obama is trying to end homeschooling in the United States too? There was
yeah,
you heard about that? Yeah.
I heard about that. That's why I was wondering, like, I don't know if it would be really that much of a big deal in Canada as opposed to the United States. Like, the United States seems to be pretty very strict about certain things. Definitely more so than Canada. Like, Canada has more political systems to choose from. We don't just have a 2-party system, but essentially the minority groups up here don't get voted in because they just don't have enough power. They don't have enough seats. So
yeah.
But in America, it's like you only have 2 to choose from, which is ridiculous.
No, it shouldn't be. It was never originally meant to be like that. I mean, George Washington said that we shouldn't even have political parties.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you like a closing question here. What do you see? I know you're not like a psychic or anything, but just what do you see coming in the next couple months?
Well, I see an attack on conspiracy theorists by the media, and I see the government actually taking action, a little bit more action, like a considerable amount more, in regards to people claiming certain things and looking into it. They're gonna try to steer people away from looking into alternative information. So that's what I see definitely happening. And I don't know, I think that the younger suspect might die tonight.
Yeah.
Or today, sorry, and it just changed to a new day. It's the 20th now here, so I think he might die if he's not dead already, which is actually strange too. I wanted to mention this. When I was watching the live feed, the news report when they found him in the boat, I seen it on the screen. It said that there was a body found, like the suspect body was found in the boat.
I saw that article. I saw an article which said body found in boat, and then it disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was gone, and it changed to suspect in boat. The word body was removed. So I don't know why they plugged that word body into the title, but I definitely thought he was dead right away. And then I seen a picture of him being detained, and he's got a bloody face, and he looks pretty mangled and beat up. And there was a military soldier on top of him, holding him down. Or there's a couple officers on him, actually. So, you know, he might be dead already, and they're just saying he's alive. You never know.
Well, did you?
And we never see the body. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah, well,
we never see the bodies of these people. So.
Did you see the picture of the older brother? He supposedly it was him, and he was lying on the ground.
He got ran over apparently by his brother when he was escaping or something.
No. This was him lying on the ground with his hands behind his back, and it said that he was captured, and then it kind of just disappeared. The first report was that, you know, he was apprehended, and then it came out that he was killed. And there was an actual picture of him lying on the ground with his hands behind his back, just laying there, and he was clearly alive, and he was, you know, not doing anything, and then he was mysteriously killed. So
that's the older brother?
Yeah, the older brother. There was I wish I had the picture, but it was just him like lying on the ground, like a typical person being arrested, with his hands tied behind his back.
Yeah, I didn't see that picture. They might have taken it down. They've done that lots before. Take pictures down, take articles down, videos like the Family Guy episode that aired.
Yeah.
That's been taken. They seriously strengthened their copyright claims on those videos for the Family Guy. So now they're not available due to copyright claims in a lot of cases. So they tried to wipe that off the internet, but it's still up there. You can still watch it, and that's. I don't really know if that's in relation to the Boston bombings, really, the Family Guy episode. It's very strikingly similar that happened, but at the same time, it's not. It's because he uses the cell phone and he befriends a terrorist, and the cell phone detonates the bombs. That's pretty questionable, I think. Because Boston police were reporting that everyone in the Boston area shouldn't be using their cell phones for a certain period of time in case there was undetonated bombs, which they apparently found.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird there. But he drove through the Boston Marathon in his car, killing people, which I think he made that episode because he knew the Boston Marathon was coming up in a month. So he wanted to include a stunt about the Boston Marathon to kind of, tie it in with the event and the advertising, the promotion for it, or whatever. So I think that might be why he did it, but he kind of got too close. And if you watch his other shows, like Super Dad and stuff like that.
American Dad.
American Dad, yeah. If you watch his other shows, they're pretty touchy on this kind of thing too, you know. They always make references to 9/11 and terrorists and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you noticed the guy who was interviewing Peter Griffin in there was Bob Costas, and he's like a big globalist. He had those comments about guns when an NFL.
He's doing the voice for the terrorist, you mean?
No, it was the scene where the guy asked Peter Griffin how he won the Boston Marathon. It was like, yeah, that was Bob Costas, and he's a big globalist, and he had this comments back in December when an NFL player shot himself, and he was saying that NFL players shouldn't have guns, and you know how dangerous guns are and everything. So I thought that was a little weird too, that they actually used Bob Costas in that scene.
Yeah, like there's a lot of similarities, and I can understand why it's been pulled off, but I don't know if Seth really had that intention to I don't think he had the advanced knowledge of that happening anyways, put it that way. Like maybe he thought that something could happen at Boston Marathon, like a terrorist attack, because he was worried maybe all the North Korea hype got him wondering about it. So maybe that's why he included it in there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you should put into stuff like that, though. Especially, you know, they did the same thing with Sandy Hook about Batman, and I don't know, you know, how much you should actually put. Into
The Batman map is pretty crazy though, because it says Sandy Hook on the Batman map, and the guy who made the map, the prop master, was from Sandy Hook, and he died.
Yeah, I did hear that, yeah.
In a car accident, and his wife said he was an amazing driver, and she didn't think that he died, and his wife also was battling the school system. So that's kind of weird, you know? That's really strange to me. But I think he put the Sandy Hook on the map just because he lived there and he wanted to kind of put his hometown, or maybe where he lived, on the map. And also New Jersey, Sandy Hook, there's that as well, so it's hard to say.
Well,
but it's a rabbit hole, you know what I mean? When you jump into the rabbit hole, you can't get out. It's just, you're just going to keep seeing all these things, but the thing is, there is patterns, and there is a lot of truth to what people are actually coming up with and explaining. There's a lot of truth to some of it, so mind you, there is a lot of disinfo out there, and there's a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories, but there's so many conspiracies that are actually facts, that are truths. It's just the media's way of making people not take these claims seriously is by using the term conspiracy theorists. So it's just a way to make people scared to look into this information. I mean, it was just recently proven in court that Martin Luther King was assassinated by the government on an inside job. So his family didn't want to receive any money out of the court case or anything like that. They just wanted to prove that it was a government job, and they did that. So they didn't get any money out of it. That's not why they did it, but it's great that they won the case, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's other, like the JFK assassination, that's definitely got CIA all over it, and other elements. 9/11, I don't think anybody's really questioning that too much anymore. Yeah. I mean, there still is people saying that it wasn't an inside job, but if you look at the evidence, you can clearly see that they had advanced knowledge, and there's so much evidence proving that what we've been told is all false.
Well, you mentioned September 11th and JFK, and I had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who wrote a book about the Illuminati, and we were talking about this, and he was saying about George H.W. Bush has been involved in all these modern day events that have really shaped America. He was the head of the CIA during the Kennedy assassination, and he had all these conflicting reports about where he was on that day, and some people say that he was actually in Dallas that day.
Yeah,
and then
William Cooper said that too.
Yeah, and then you go up to he was in the vice president during Reagan administration, and it was actually speculated that he actually ran the White House during the last couple of years of the Reagan administration because Reagan had Alzheimer's.
Iran-Contra stuff too.
Yeah, and then
Iran-Contra has Bush ties with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then he became president, and then believe it or not, he actually sponsored Bill Clinton when he went to be a Rhodes Scholar in England, and then his son comes in. So it's been like 40 years that the Bush family has been shaping America, and definitely not for the better.
Yeah, well, even Prescott Bush had ties with the Nazis. Yeah. He was funding both sides, so that's where they got their fortune and their rise to power, essentially their monopoly. And they've definitely got it's hard to say. Like, I'm guessing that they're still involved, except now that they're not in the spotlight as presidents, or they're not really in the spotlight anymore in regards to politics. They're probably in the background, part of the criminal empire, pulling the strings. Yeah, like, it's a mafia, really, what it is. There's criminal elements in the government that's essentially like a mafia. It is. I'm sure that they have direct ties with mafia members, and that it's a deeply, deeply rooted, like, there's a taproot in that organization. They're deeply rooted now because it's been allowed to suffice for so long now. They're definitely a powerful organization, and they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and they continue to do so. Just like in Syria, the president, Assad, claims that the United States, I'm guessing it would be the CIA, have been funding Al-Qaeda in the Syrian rebel war over there, giving them weapons and training them to essentially try to overthrow the Assad government that's in place right now. And then you have Venezuela's newly elected president, Maduro, who's the prodigy of Chavez. He's claiming that the United States is responsible for the uproar that's happening over there in regards to the elections, where several people were killed as a result of civil unrest due to the results of the election. So, you know what I mean? There's definitely some expansion going on. There's a criminal empire that's going on, and they're trying to dominate the entire planet. They're colluding, and they're using the United Nations, I think, to pull a lot of strings as well.
Yeah, I think when it really comes down that they're going to use the United Nations against the United States. I can't remember this lady's name, but she does like conspiracy stuff on YouTube, and she in her town, she saw these Russian troops driving DHS trucks. So they already have foreign troops in here.
Wasn't that in Colorado?
No, it was in. It might have been in Colorado, but it was also in Kentucky too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's just become so bad on so many levels that something big needs to happen. And I'm not an anarchist, but it's just so bad now that we need to have a revolution or something like that to just completely wipe the slate clean and start over with how it should be. You know,
it's so hard to do that now though, because it's so deeply rooted, and people just can't see a world without it being the way it is now, with a financial system in place and levels of class and division, starving people and people that have food, middle class, low class, high class. Yeah. It's just they can't see a world without that, I think, and that's a problem.
Well, I don't think we're ever going to be able to advance as a species if we don't, get rid of this, because they have been holding humans, not just Americans, not just Canadians, but the whole human species back so much. It's just not even believable. I have no doubt if we were allowed to be a free thinking society and really allowed to push ourselves to the limit, we would be on the moon, we'd be on Mars, and they don't want that because they can't. I know it sounds far fetched, but we have the technology, and the reason they don't want us to go to other planets and really push ourselves to our limit is because they wouldn't be able to control us, and they wouldn't be able to, have this control they have if we were, on different planets and exploring the universe like we're supposed to be doing. I mean, we haven't, and this is a really pet peeve of mine that ticks me off. I mean, we haven't been to the moon since 1972, and my iPhone has more computing power than that Apollo probe. Yeah. So
I'm sure they've been there, and I'm sure they have like even bases on the moon and on Mars.
But it's only for them. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. It's just very, very top secret, classified information. These programs, and I'm sure a few countries, like the United Nations, the countries that are involved in that round table group, are essentially involved in that. And I don't know, it's like what we were discussing earlier. I think the solution to the problem is we need to get public power back into play. I mean, I feel violated knowing that a government controls me and rules over top of my thoughts and my actions. Like, I can't do what I want. I can't truly do what I want, because I know that if I were to take my family and chop down a few trees and build a house out of it and shelter my family and grow a garden and eat food and stuff like that, and eat healthy food that's not chemically produced, that they would eventually say, hey, you're on my land, get off. And what would I do then, I'd have to get back into society and try to find a job. And because of me cutting my ties, it's hard for me to get a job, and it's hard for me to go out there and support the family. So I do so any way I can. Like, I run a record label and I do music stuff and that sort of thing. So that kind of helps out. But it's really hard to get away from that system. You know what I mean? And I think what really needs to happen is the public needs to take the power back and really speak out against this stuff and get involved and lobby and address the government and address the local politicians from a local level, which is why I started the World Public Union, is because a union can start in a city, and therefore it's like a seed on a local level, and as more people join it, it's like a seed that grows into a bigger group which can question the government on a local level and demand them to label the food properly, to implement better learning programs, to actually have a voice, and that's what's really needed. And the problem is, a lot of people learn about what's going on in the world, and they learn about all this corruption, and they're really against it, and it really makes them sick to their stomach, just like me and you, but they don't do anything about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't know how to become involved and become active. They might not have the ability to make videos and documentaries or start radio shows and discuss these issues and be the news for the people. But everybody needs to realize that they are the controller of their own world and their own decisions. And when everybody realizes that they do have that power and they take that power back, then the government will be forced to change and listen to the people and make decisions for the people, which isn't being done right now at all on any level, in my opinion.
I could have said it better myself. I mean, if there's anybody listening right now who isn't already part of the World Public Union, just go over and check out the site. It's worldpublicunion.org. I mean, just go check it out. You did a really great job on your site, by the way.
Thanks. It's a newer website, and we're like, what I'm trying to do is, talk to people about this stuff. Like, just send over an email, and if you're interested in starting a group, or you already have an activist group in a town and you've got 20 members, well, let me know your link. I'll post a link on the page in the local group, and then when anybody logs into the site and they, let's just say, go to New Jersey, they can find groups in New Jersey that are protesting against anti-war, free Bradley Manning, give him the Nobel Peace Prize, like any sort of activist group out there that's aware of what's going on in the world and just have had enough of the corruption. They've got to do something about it. You can't, once you see the train coming, you can't just stand there on the railroad tracks. You gotta get out of the way, you gotta react, you gotta do something. Yeah. You gotta get out of the way and identify the problem and then solve the problem. That's what you gotta do.
Yeah, I think a simple principle that goes with your site is there's power in numbers, and the more people that are woken up in a group can really do something and actually change things around here. Yeah,
like each local essentially has an administrator, which is essentially the first person that emails me from that city, and then I'll set them up as the administrator, and then they're able to recruit members or send me information on who's other activist groups in the area or events that are happening, so people will know how to become active and how to get involved and who's in their community that's fighting for the same reasons. And it's a way to post that information and keep everyone up to date about it. And I think that if all activist groups got together, rather than having walls up, like there's so many people out there that oppose Alex Jones and InfoWars, saying that he's a shill and saying this and that, like, you can question, motives of people, or you can question their personalities and stuff, but really you have to pay attention to the message. You can't always attack the messenger. The message sometimes is very important. Like, it is important most of the time, like people's messages, and that's the most important thing. And when you start putting walls up and you won't listen to one person, then you start falling out and following a certain path. You know what I mean? You got to be really open to everything and soak it all in, and choose who you want to listen to and choose who you want to learn from. But at the same time, if somebody's telling you about a problem and you've identified it as being a serious problem, then you should listen to what they have to say, because the power is in numbers, exactly like you said. The power is in numbers, and if we all join together, everyone in unison, that'll cure the problem really fast.
Yeah. Well, just use common sense. I mean, if you're not sure about somebody's motives, I mean, just look at what they're doing and decide for yourself if that's the right thing. And when you look at Obama and when you look at, people in the government, you just have that feeling. And I know I'm not the only one. That just thinks there's something bad about them, and they're not doing something right. But when you go to sites like InfoWars and World Public Union, that's a good cause, and people should support that.
Yeah, like it's good to find information that's trying to get you the most honest information that's not being withheld from the media, first off, and that's not being withheld from the government. So, like the GMO Monsanto Protection Act, I can't believe Obama signed that, because that makes Monsanto essentially invincible. They can't be brought down in the legal system. They can't be charged for any health effects that their food products have on people. And there's scientific evidence out there showing that people are getting sick from eating these foods. They're not living as long anymore, and they're getting sick and all. And there's so much evidence out there. It's like Barry Soetoro. Why don't you go on the internet and watch, The World According to Monsanto? Watch that documentary and tell me what you think of it. If you're listening right now, I hope you are somewhere in the White House. Watch that video and comment to the public about what you think about it. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Yeah. Like that. Why don't these politicians ever watch important videos like that? If they do, then they obviously ignore it, because the science is there, the evidence is there that people are getting sick and diseases from eating foods that are related to Monsanto, and he signs an act protecting them, and he got bashed for it, but it wasn't enough, because the act is there, it's signed, and it's good to go, So he should be held in contempt for a criminal act for signing that, in my opinion.
Among other
knowing
things.
The evidence. Like, watch the documentary and tell me that he shouldn't be held for crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
And the drone strikes in Pakistan and all the other places that he's assigned and he's okayed, he needs to be thrown in prison for life with no parole. Same with Bush.
Yeah, same with Clinton, same with the whole lot. But I still can't.
I wouldn't want to see them assassinated. I would want to see them in a prison with a public camera feed on them at all times, so we know that they're in prison and eating prison food, so that we know that they're actually being served justice, because, I don't trust the media. They could say that they've done justice, public justice for these people, but really we know they're in Hawaii, sipping martinis on the beach.
Give them the justice that they probably wouldn't give us. But let me ask you, if people want to contact you about something they heard about this Boston bombing, or just have questions about your site, how can they reach you?
Just go to the website worldpublicunion.org, and there's an email on there, worldpublicunion@yahoo.com. Just send me a message. I'm always wanting to hear from people, and just if you send me a news story that you think is really important, and I'll definitely post it online if I think it's important. I try to keep it up to date as much as possible, and really that the World Public Union is whatever people feed into it. There is no leader in the group. I'm just the founder of the group, and I'm the webmaster, so I update the website. But essentially, it's a public union. It's meant to be fed by the public and maintained by the public in all parts of the world. It's not just isolated to one country. It's not a group that's just for one thing. It's a group for everything, for all countries. It's a world public union. It's the union of the world's public factor, and I think that if we all got together and addressed all problems rather than isolating one single problem, we could definitely tackle this in greater numbers. And it's free to join. It doesn't cost anything. All it is a bit of your time. Just send news articles so they can get posted to the sites, and keep there's all sorts of local web pages made, like the union pages for every time a new union is started for a new city, a new web page goes up for that city, and then events can be posted on there, links relating to other activist groups in the area, important news headlines, stuff like that, and a member list and a contact for somebody that you can get in touch with locally, and the webmaster, which is my email, so that if you got any information on a local level or anything, I can post it online and try to get the word out to people. So So it's the intent is there. It's already set up. I made the website. I designed it ready for people that want to do something about this. You just get in touch. We could all work together and try to do something on a public level and on a peaceful level, which is really needed. I think. I think violence would just escalate things to something that nobody wants to see, and really defeats the purpose. I think we could really do this more intellectually. We could really change the system and the way we're living more intellectually rather than through finances. We should really be choosing life over profit, and that's what a lot of these politicians and banksters and gangsters don't understand. Is life isn't about money. Life is about life. So
living it to the fullest. But you have a YouTube page too, don't you?
Yeah, I have a personal YouTube page which I post my documentaries on, and I'll be posting this interview on there. I always post any radio interviews I do on my YouTube page. And there's also a YouTube page for the World Public Union. That doesn't have as many videos. I'm going to be updating it more frequently in the coming weeks. I'm working on a new documentary actually called New World Order Domino Effect. And it's going to be a shorter movie as compared to my other ones, but I'm trying to sum up as much information as I can and put it into one video so that it's one source to find out a variety of information and problems that we have, and it's going to discuss the World Public Union at the end and let people know what being active is all about. A lot of people say that people are sleeping, they're not awake. Well, once you are awake, what's the next step? You get out of bed, you rise up. So after you're done your sleep and after you've woken up, you got to rise up. That's the next step. You can't just learn about this stuff and just sit there with the knowledge in your head. You got to rise up. You got to do something about it, Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do with this video and with the World Public Union. So
looking forward to that. Hey, Mark, thanks a lot for coming on. It was a great interview. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to you about these things, for sure.
Well, worldpublicunion.org. Thanks for coming on again, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David.
That was Mark Howitt of the World Public Union, worldpublicunion.org. And you can reach him by going there, and it's just amazing what's really happening. And if you really wake up and smell the roses, it's amazing what's really going on here. And it's people like Mark that are slowly waking up people to what's really going on. And I really thank him for that. And we really do need more people like that. And, if you're lost and you feel like you know what's going on, but there's really, no one else, and you feel like you're alone and you really can't do anything, I think, his site is one of the best places to go and try to talk to people who have similar ideas about what's going on. And that, again, is worldpublicunion.org. Make sure you check out my site, too. It's inthedarkfridaynight.com. You can email me at inthedark2126@gmail.com. If you're a person who would like to be interviewed on the show, you can also email me at inthedark2126@gmail.com or fill out the form on the website. I want to thank Mark again for coming on, and that is the show for tonight. I'm David Kirk, and this has been In the Dark Friday Night.